Hello, everyone. I'm Lisa Simonian from the Neocon team, and I'd like to thank you for joining us for this afternoon's program with Daniel, Gail, and Diana, The Power of Place, the New Next Workplace. First, just a few housekeeping items. Today's session qualifies for accreditation, and certificates will be emailed in the next 3 days to anyone who attends the full session. More details on accreditation can be found on the Neocon website under programming. Also, the final 15 minutes of the program will be questions and answers with the group. So if you have questions, please submit them under the Q&A box, not the chat. So let's get started with a little background on our presenters. Daniel Harriet is the Director of Design for the Interiors Group at HOK in San Francisco and is a design champion for the HOK Product Design Group. Before San Francisco, Daniel was at HOK in London, where he delivered a number of successful interior projects, including BBC Worldwide Headquarters, BBC New Broadcasting House, BBC Grafton House, BBC Radio 1, Carnival UK, ExxonMobil, the British Medical Association, and the Ministry of Defense. Daniel is passionate about delivering creative environments that enrich people's everyday lives through a collaborative and inclusive design process. Deanna Stanisek is an associate designer at HOK Atlanta. Her creativity in interior architectural design, space planning, and the selections of finishes and furnishings allows her to work closely with the project team in achieving goals and culture desired by the client. As a millennial, she brings a unique perspective to the design of office environments that assists clients with recruiting and retaining talent. And Gail Mutri is Global Vice President, Brand and Workplace Innovation for the Steelcase family of brands. She is publisher and executive editor of the 360 magazine, a global publication that delivers Steelcase research and explores trends impacting work, workers, and the workplace. In her role, Gail travels the world speaking with customers, design professionals, and leading organizations about the changing nature of work and the important role of the workplace. And so now we'll pass the screen over to Gail to get started.
Thank you, Lisa. And clearly my global travels have been virtual for the past year, but it's good that I've actually been able to do that. So I'm going to kick off with just a little bit about the work that Steelcase did with HOK, some of the provocations that we gave ourselves, and then I'll pass it over to Daniel and Deanna to actually take you through some of the thoughts and ideas that we had subsequent to that. So let me share. And, oops, pardon me. Let me go back and start at the beginning where I should be starting. Good, thank you. So, you know, to talk about disruption, I don't even know that any of us need to talk about the disruption that we've all been through for the past year. And there's so many aspects of this that have been so negative that, you know, what we'd like to do is really make this disruption conversation a positive one. And, you know, when we first decided to do this workshop together, we said, how could we, you know, provoke in the sense that how we might look at this disruption in this positive way and say, what could the future of work be? And how might we actually empower work or empower better experiences as we go forward? And that was really the basis of the collaboration that we had. It was 3 days, late summer. And we felt it was really important that we come together. We think it's really important that all of us come together and share, you know, that we share all of the research that we're all doing. You know, during our workshop, we took a good look at some of the existing issues that are out there, issues that we think may have been amplified by the pandemic. And then we pushed ourselves into a working hypothesis on what some of these, at the time, early indicators were and how we think the world might respond over time. So I would say we did do this late summer, but we've all continued to do research since then. And we are seeing that many of the things that we thought were going to happen have definitely started to happen. So what we asked ourselves, and part of what we want to share with you today, are some really key questions. And we think these are key questions that we all need to be asking ourselves. We think they're questions that we need to be asking the clients that we work with. And as we go through this session today, there are a number of these key questions that we wanted to share with you, because we do think at a time when nobody knows what to do, no one has a crystal ball with this thing, then really the best thing we could do is understand the most meaningful questions that we need to be able to challenge ourselves and our clients on the things that we should be doing. So we had a little bit of an aha moment. And, that aha moment was when we said, why do we want to return to the way things were before? Maybe some places, for some organizations, they were really good, but a lot of it was not that good. And so the idea of returning to something that we all call the office, maybe that's fundamentally flawed. And we started to talk about how could we evolve beyond that, and how might we, given all the things we've learned about the fact that it is possible to work from home, how might we then start to reimagine the office as more of an ecosystem of spaces that could address what we need in the future. And then we took a look at all of the issues that we knew were really important before. You can see 9 of them there. We say, these are the things that you really do have to mind. All of these things matter more now than they even did before. But we did want to come up with something that could be helpful for the clients that we deal with. And that is, like, what are the 5 really big issues that all organizations around the world are going to have to grapple with today? And you can see the 5 that we came up with. And I'm going to take just a few minutes here just to go a little bit deeper on those. And again, as I said before, share with you some questions that we think are really key in helping us understand how to grapple with some of these issues. So of course, the first one is health, safety, and well-being. And, this has become a #1 priority for everybody in terms of what do you do when there is some kind of infectious disease or airborne disease that we have to be thinking about. But even beyond that, the idea of enhancing our health or our well-being as we go forward is going to continue to be a really big deal for everybody. And the important point is that it isn't just our physical safety or well-being, but it really is how we address our holistic well-being. So it's the physical, but it's also the emotional and the cognitive health. And here's a list of some of the questions that we think are really key to ask. You will be able to see these questions again when you watch the recording of this. But we highlighted the one at the bottom because as we go through some of the ideas we had, as Daniel and Deanna share those with you, we want to touch on this idea: how can we actually, through an ecosystem of spaces, address well-being more holistically? And then the second one, remote work. As I touched on, we were forced into understanding that it is possible and that people can work from home. It may not always be ideal, but it certainly is possible. And so this really should have us challenging some of our beliefs about where and how we work. And, in the summer, we said, oh, we can see this becoming something in the foreseeable future we'll all have to think about. And it absolutely is. And I think every organization that we have spoken with around the world is considering or adopting some kind of hybrid work as they go forward. So understanding how to make remote work work is something that we need to do. And with respect to the places where we bring people together, again, there's a list of questions that we think we need to ask ourselves. A key one here being, how do we all ensure that remote work is as successful as possible for everybody who may be involved in it? That's a real challenge, but it's one that we have to figure out. So then the third one, the purpose of place. People like all of us who do this every day, we understand how important the role of place is for an organization. But, we think throughout this pandemic, so many more organizations have realized that, or starting to reassess the true purpose of these places where their people come together. And, they're thinking much more about how place can help foster their culture, build their brand, ultimately do the things that an organization needs to do to continue to innovate. And a lot of organizations are uncertain. They're uncertain about what path that they should take as they go forward. And, that's one of the things that we believe is important for all of us to, again, ask the right questions, but start to develop some hypothesis so that we can help these organizations. Again, how you think about place or the places that you work in to help you, build and support the purpose of an organization. There's a lot of questions we need to continue to ask around that. A key one is, how do we all ensure that people have the options and choices that they need, that we actually think they'll begin to demand, to allow them to fit their specific needs? And this is one of the things that we believe that the pandemic has really accelerated, is people's understanding of the importance of these choices. And, again, they're probably growing demand that they will ask for those, or they will choose who they work for on the basis of that. So building resilience, or building business resiliency, the word resiliency or resilient is probably one of the hottest one with C-suite today. And the disruption we've gone through, and a lot of the new emerging business models, they're shaking every industry and every sector. And for us, thinking about how a company uses their workplace to build their business resiliency is really, really key. Particularly as a lot of organizations worry that this may happen to us again, and we all want to be better prepared the next time, if unfortunately there is a next time. So again, the questions that we should be asking ourselves around office design, you can see the list of questions there, but one that we think is key, we want to talk a bit about today, is how do we, in this world where resiliency may mean a more distributed workforce, how do we create these spaces that actually enable that distributed workforce to be as effective as possible? And then the last one is around, ESG, or environment, social, and governance. And this was a very, very big topic pre-pandemic. It continues to be a big topic, and we believe it will be an even more dominant topic as we go forward. All organizations, we have new economic pressures. We have the need to address all of the change that is going on, and the issue of social inequity and inclusion. These are things that have become very important to us over the last year, and how we think about that, so that we help organizations drive these more comprehensive environmental, social, and governance policies, and how we allow those to be evidenced in the spaces that they occupy. That is a really, really key issue. And again, a list of questions that we should be asking ourselves relative to that. With the one really big important one is, how can we truly address climate change and environmental sustainability in the future? So key findings for us, that clearly, the office of yesterday is not the answer as we go forward, that we really do need to think about replacing what that may have been with this ecosystem of spaces that can actually help empower people with the options and the choices that they will need today and tomorrow. And then how do we accomplish all of that through shifting from very fixed solutions to much more fluid solutions and environments that allow people to be agile enough that they can adapt and evolve? Rethinking the purpose of place is really key if we want to create places that are so compelling that people want to be there. We can and should be thinking when access could be the new ownership. It's a great question. If you don't need to own it, then don't. And there's other options we could consider, whether it's you use the community, tapping into more of the shared economy. There are a lot of emerging models that we should be paying attention to be able to help our clients with these. And then, the final one, but a super important one, is how do we better leverage technology so that we can be more effective? And really that means understanding all of the current and emerging technologies that can actually be used to better braid physical experiences with digital experiences. So we're actually using the technology to help people have much more human and better experiences. So I am going to turn this over to Daniel and let him begin to show you some of the thoughts and ideas that we had as a result of asking ourselves some of these questions.
Thank you, Gail. Good job. So I'll just continue off where Gail left there. You're by now itching to find out what our thoughts were back in June and what our thoughts are now. So Deanna and I will attempt to explain what the building blocks of our thinking are from a macro and a micro level, and then what the experiences could be or should be. Now, the idea here is to just communicate a sequence of ideas is not the be-all and end-all solution. The idea here is to suggest a few things, give you the right questions to be asking your clients, and then you'll go off and do your own supply and demand modeling with those clients and come up with unique solutions to each client. So the notion of returning to the office, we think, is flawed. We think we've got a fantastic opportunity to make things a heck of a lot better than what they are now. And that starts with really reimagining an ecosystem. And we're not just talking about spaces within an office, but we're talking about reimagining an ecosystem of offices and homes and trying to facilitate this new hybrid work model that we're going to find ourselves in. Some of you may be asking now, well, why return to the office at all? We've been doing this 12 months. We got this. We surprised ourselves. We went straight into a remote world, and we've been doing really well. Well, yes, we have in a lot of ways. Back in June, when we were looking at this, there were a lot of reports about increased anxieties, particularly in young adults, increased depression symptoms amongst Americans that were actually at that point in time 4 times higher in June of 2020 than they were in June of 2019. And now we're into this a year now. A lot of us are feeling a lot of Zoom doom, a lot of Zoom fatigue. And why is that? It's because one of the reasons is that 65% of our communication is actually nonverbal. We get it from triggers, from body language, from other suggestions, from facial expressions. We can only pick up a limited number of that when we're not physically together. We're relying on the cameras. Thank God there's video conferencing now, but also verbal communication. We're compensating for that. So more meetings, longer hours, and we're static. We are lacking inspiration. We're not getting out there. You know, that's really important for people in a creative industry to be inspired. And sometimes we need each other to inspire each other, sharing experience, that sort of thing. So there's a sense of drifting at the moment. You may or may not have experienced. There's also emotional connections that are really important for people to be together. A lot of us are pack animals, and we need to feed off each other's energies. And then there's the mentorship that's lacking as well for our young people who are entering an industry, just to sit next to someone of more experience, listen to how they condone themselves on the phone, or how they dress, how they present themselves and introduce themselves to each other, the general etiquette, those small soft skills that are really, really important, and then the social skills that come with it as well, that are completely underestimated at this point in time. We think are really important things that we must maintain and improve and get back into. So we've also been throwing out a lot of surveys. We leverage Steelcase's information, HOK's global information to our clients, and our own internal information. What's absolutely going to happen when we return to work is we're going to return into a hybrid model situation. Now, survey results have revealed different things. People that work some people want to permanently return to the office on a full-time basis. Some want to stay at home. But in every case, whichever way the numbers balance out, the majority want to return in a hybrid fashion, which means some days in the office and some days at home. People are craving that flexibility and looking for something different. So that triggers a different thought as well, i.e. access is the new ownership. So what you're looking at here is a diagram that represents an ecosystem of spaces. Little yellow is where we all are right now. That's home. Our big orange is the hub. That's the central office, the place we once were. And then the introduction here is really bespoke. It's the blue stuff in between those two spaces. And we're going to explain to you what those things are. So we'll start off where we all are now. Now, the reality is this is going to be different for everyone, but it's tailored to your liking. What we would promote here is that you take the best principles that we promote in the office and actually utilize them as much as you can at home. Think about your acoustics, your natural light, your connection with nature, being outside, your mobility between spaces. You should not render yourself static at this point in time. I confess I'm a few pounds heavier than I was last year, so I'm not doing this as best I can. But that's got a lot to do with the Zoom and the acoustic quality and needing privacy as well. So we're hoping we can improve upon this, particularly for people who want to stay at home full time.
And I'll make sure I go off mute. As As Gail and Daniel mentioned before, we did the study a couple of months into the pandemic, and this is where we were all forced to work at home, and it wasn't by choice. So of course it was difficult to figure out our ways to work, but once we got in the groove of it, we figured some things that are beneficial versus our challenges. We see that the home is better for more individual focused work instead of doing more group teamwork. If it's heads down things, especially if you're hypersensitive and being in an open office, sometimes it is difficult to work on heads down work. Some of the benefits that we did notice are, of course, the convenience. When you could see in the future, just booking appointments, having deliveries come to the house, you have the flexibility to be at home and get work done while taking care of your life. There's a health and well-being aspect of it. Cooking your own meals, for example. I was one to go to lunch every single day because I didn't have time to make lunch. Now we can make those healthy meals at home and take care of ourselves. Of course, one of the benefits would be no commute, which is great that it's reducing our carbon footprint, but also that it gives you those hours back in the day to really go for a walk or take care of yourself. It also gives you the ability to focus, on yourself, which is really good for wellness. And again, bringing that point back going forward. And then, of course, digital connectivity. We've had technology be able to evolve to be able to work from home. If this happened 5 years ago, we'd be in a really difficult situation. And then some of those challenges that we've noticed, not everybody has equality. Some people have no internet, or it's difficult for those people to work at home due to lifestyle. Ergonomics is one thing that's huge. If you didn't have a chair with arms, or if you didn't have a proper workstation set up at home, of course, by the end of the day, your back is fatigued. And those are some things that we are addressing in the workplace, but it's difficult to address at home because it's a fiscal cost on you. Your health and well-being, if you are a caretaker at home, or that role in your family, it's difficult to get work done at home, and that's where you'll need to go to an office. Social isolation, people are really lacking that connection to others and teams. And really the inability to separate life and work now. We are so focused on our computers, it's hard to step away, like Daniel said. You're kind of just fixated on working. You really have to be conscious about breaking away and getting your life back. I think we thrive most when we have balance, when we have options, and when we have choice. That's our control, that's our wellness. And moving forward, we'll show you how we can address those in Spoke and Hub.
Thanks, Deanna. Right, you are. So here's the new kid on the block, the Spoke office. What is it? We imagine this to be strategically located suburban offices. Now, they don't have to be owned. They don't have to be personal lease spaces, but they could be membership model spaces, co-working spaces, that sort of thing. But a space that's suburban or strategically rural, in strategically rural locations. Now, why the Spoke? Well, one of the biggest bones of contention amongst people at the moment when they're thinking about the return to work is the commute, how you get there. And the last thing we want to do is all start driving. Bad for planet. Most people don't. It's not the best use of time. It's expensive, and it's time consuming, particularly in locations like where I am, San Francisco. It's got some of the worst traffic in the US. So, if it was just for that reason alone, that could be enough. But there are other things that are beneficial to this type of space. From a business perspective, it widens the catchment area for reaching out to employ talent as well. You can spread to vaster locations. This is designed to really bring people together, but more at an intimate level where you build sort of regional communities. Maybe it's a place you can bring your dog, maybe it's not, but it could be smaller, friendly, more intimate, and you can start to build those networks and connections and perhaps friendships with your colleagues. And then, so if we now dig in and look at the building blocks, now we've comprised these into 5 zones, and then we've comprised suggestions of different space types and considerations into each. The zones don't necessarily represent adjacencies, but we can just deeper dive and have a look at this. So I'm going to start at the top and work down. This is the first contact with your employees. So we've called it the arrival zone. But what we are designing now, what we're promoting now, is that these are less transitional, more welcoming, and somewhat destinational, that you do get a sense of activity, but we're actually promoting to push some stuff out front and make them bigger and have more design focus than before. So the welcome, the security, all that stuff, it still remains, it's enhanced if anything, but you're going to start to push out more lobby meeting spaces potentially, whether they're enclosed or open, so that guests, if they come in here for meetings, don't have to go deep into a workspace. It may be better from their perspective. It may be better for the other employees' perspective as well. And if you're in a shared facility, it minimizes cost because this is more likely a landlord-owned space as well. The sanitation and screening, we think, is going to remain for some time. And then there's overlays to this, right? There's technology, there's fresh air, there's all that sort of stuff that we can't really show in a drawing here. But the sanitation and screening still needs to be there. The general guidance by ways of signing and wayfinding, we think, has been too alarmist. And we've been at this 12 months, we got this, that it should be thought of more as guidance. And perhaps it can be an integrated part of the design as well, so it's more harmonious, but generally minimized, because we've all been shopping, we've all been to the stores, we all know how to distance ourselves. Most of us are courteous with one another. The welcome and security aspect, we do think that screens will be paramount in more reception, so there will be a sense of removal from that person there, but a manned reception is still a good thing to do and to have, just by ways of welcome and streamline of communication. Digital information, we're seeing a lot more apps being utilized in the workplace. Having digital information to enable you to pick the best times to travel, to see who's perhaps already checked into a building, to share brand or campaign information or news generally, as being paramount for these spaces. And then we've got other stuff like visitor lockers to keep stuff in an area that's not deep in the workplace. And also you could manage deliveries this way as well. Amazon Go, UPS pickups, that sort of thing, from a personal level, not just from a business level. And then micro transportation as well, you know, small electric vehicles or bicycles, man-powered stuff that enables employees to go out, take a breather, perhaps get lunch outside, something like that. Then as we shift further into the space, we've got the support areas. For the wellness suite, nursing mothers, perhaps it's just isolation pods to get away, prayer rooms, wellness rooms, we still see as staying as being a very important part of the workplace for the overall inclusivity and diversity of that workplace. Support areas to get everything you need. Here we've shown vending machines, but stuff like technology, IT technology, if you've got more of a distributed network of offices, there may not be a manned presence there. So perhaps lockers or vending machines where you can pick up an alternative or do an exchange for a laptop or a piece of equipment or something like that. As well as food provision and healthy snacks, and perhaps merchandise and stationery as well. And then we're looking at the kitchen areas and breakouts and trying to make those more intuitive for people to navigate around. We're spending much more time focusing on the actual streamlined efficiency of getting people in and out in a fluid and safe manner than just thinking about the positioning of sinks and equipment and all that sort of thing. More fridges for people to bring their own foods, spacing out microwaves, you know, where people are likely to be dwelling in front of those to wait for things to bake. Increase the number of sinks for hand washing provisions, that sort of thing, and general emphasis, bigger size, more open size as well, to give people the opportunity to dwell and to self-distance if they need to. And then delivery and lockers, there may be a side entrance, back entrance for deliveries as well, but that's another important consideration to keep off to the side and not have people coming in and out of the facility. But in every case, for each one of these zones, we've put a greater emphasis on the circulation. You know, for years we've been optimizing and crunching circulation, you know, down from 45% to 28% efficiency factors and that sort of thing. We're actually putting some back and promoting better spacing here. An example in this zone here, the Convergence Zone, this is where we're actually working in a more interactive way and meeting with each other, would be the desks. Now, for the workstations, I've actually been planning wherever I can for 4 desk clusters instead of bigger than that, because that puts in more circulation and distancing between employees, so people can choose which routes to take and avoid other people out of a courtesy or out of their own benefit as well. And then redesigning the workstations so that they feel safer. You know, we're eliminating, if access is the new ownership and there's a majority of a hybrid workforce going into these spaces, likeness is in a lot of companies now, people won't have an assigned desk. So it's going to be clear desk policies, that sort of thing. But that space needs to feel clean. It needs to be wipeable. So we're rounding off corners, we're wrapping screens to make that desk feel like it's your own for that period of time, but you avoid the inside corner for cleanliness, making them more lightweight and efficient so that they can move around. And generally, flexibility is more important now than it's ever been before. People will still need heads down focus areas, pods, booths, that sort of thing. We need to put those in too. Don't forget there's going to be a percentage of people that are there full time. But when you come here, you're not coming here just to meet and then go home. You might want to stay between meetings to actually process some of the information that you've just discussed, or just get your head down and focus on a piece of work. Team walls, really important. Provision of sanitation, stationery, messaging to other people, ideation at a moment's notice via a working wall, perhaps even AV integration in the open plan for that digital information. And then team tables, alternative formats of table where people can choose to work in a more interactive fashion than they can at a more isolated workstation. Then we move into the advanced collaboration room. Now, there are 7 modes of collaboration. We've got everything from information sharing, decisions, sales meetings, just discussions, problem solving, innovating, and social. But for decades, I've seen many examples of people just designing for one format of meeting room, central table, chairs around there. Maybe there's a second tier at the perimeter because not everyone could fit around the table. Why are we trying to do all those things in that one format? We need to apply the same science as we do out in the open to the meeting rooms. I'll give you an example. Some law firm meeting rooms are designed to actually intimidate the opposition. You couldn't expect to have a real fluid, informal ideation exercise perform in that same room. So we should be thinking in these ways based on the desired behaviors that we want to achieve out of them. But in every case, with the variation, we should be thinking about variety of posture, longevity. The overlay of technology is really important. The thing that worries me the most when we do return to the office is the great divide between present people and virtual people. We've got to really think about that divide, because you could walk away with different understandings from a meeting where the virtual people didn't quite pick up what's in the room. And we've all seen what happens when you get 3 or 4 laptops together. You're all dialing into the same Zoom meeting and sharing microphones and the echoes and feedback and all that sort of thing. But the technology aspect to actually deal with all of that stuff, plus keep the virtual people as engaged, as informed as the present people is going to be a really important thing to look out for. And then finally, leverage that outside. For the companies that we've designed recently where we did leverage the outside to promote outside working, to promote community events, that sort of thing, it has been really important for those who have still been in the office. People actually do feel more secure when they're outside and there's fresh air rather than they do in an enclosed space with a lot of people. We've all had some sort of psychological scarring from this that we need to overcome. Yours truly included, but we've got to take care of the shading, the wind, the power, the Wi-Fi out there, and just make those spaces amenable and workable as well.
And we will run through this like we did with the home. We see the spoke as being more of a team-focused space. Some of these benefits, of course, like Daniel had mentioned, is the convenience. These can be in suburban locations, for example, where your main hub is in a downtown area. So you're reducing the commute to those areas and really getting access to talent out in those zones. There's also a connection to brand. You're not in your home anymore. You're part of something. You're part of this organization that you're working for. You have access to tools in this location, that there's higher end technology that that there's, connection to those who are working from home and those who are working at the hub, that there's a sense of place in this location. It's not just you at home by yourself. There's ergonomics. This is designed for a workstation setup. There's flexibility in it. Your chair is ergonomic. Your workstation is set up. Maybe you have dual monitors, which these are all the things we're lacking at home. And there's wellness that's planned into this design. Biophilia, like he had mentioned, having access to daylight, that wellness aspect of the materials that are selected that were put into that space, the circulation of air. These are all the things we have to be mindful about designing forward. Some of the challenges we see is not having access to the entire team. Maybe leadership is still sitting at the hub. You have some team members who are still sitting at home. This we see as, if it's a team that's getting together and needs small focus groups, maybe they can meet here. There's also some redundancy for organizations. If they're paying for their real estate down for the hub, would they want a spoke location? So this is something, for those companies to think about. This is really about the connectedness to the brand. This is, something greater than yourself. You're not at home anymore. There's a motivation to work and to be in a team.
Thanks, Deanna. And finally, the hub. Now, why still have the hub? It's a great question to be asking now. Expensive city center, big footprint. We're now investing in all these other offices in suburbia as well. Why do we think there still needs to be one? It's a number of reasons. The reality is it's going to be different strokes for different folks. I've seen some clients abandon the hub and go for the spoke. I've seen some clients move into this model. We've all heard about big tech companies, other companies as well, that have reduced city center real estate, told people they can work at home for as long as they choose. But there are different things going on. We've seen other companies that have made land grabs, that have taken advantage of lowered rates in city centers, bought up properties and are gearing up. A lot of companies see value in targeting trendy cities because they see trendy cities that attract talent, find talent. And so there are some companies investing in that. Can you reduce your footprint if you're doing the spokes? Probably. Some companies are reducing their footprint, as I just mentioned. Others are transforming what they're doing in here, and others are leaving alone. There are different strategies here. What we're showing here is just an idea that gives the city center, the hub, a new attraction. And we're thinking of it more as an engagement center than we are an office. I'll explain to you what that means. Generally, it's got the same makeup as the spoke. The 5 zones are the same. I'll point out some of the nuances and some of the differences as we go through here. So for the best part, same strategy on the lobby. Destination, arrival, welcome, feel safe as you come through the door. Clean, clear circulation routes. That may mean one way in and another way out. It may not. It depends what you're given or what the building offers you as well as what you want to design. But same story, human presence for welcoming. We think that's important. Some companies are toying with robotic presence. It's still glitchy, but it is possible at the moment. And pushing more meeting spaces out front so that there's more of a opportunity to not go too deep in there. But we're seeing these as client engagement centers as well, and a facility to welcome people in. Digital information that can tie back to the spoke and provide you traffic, travel, weather information, that sort of thing. We see that as an important element, although a lot of companies are looking into workplace apps. There's a lot of companies that have developed very advanced workplace apps that you can layer in as much or as few information as possible, so people will be using their own devices. Visitors lockers again, and micro transportation. Now the opportunity here, you'll notice the buses outside there, is that the spoke locations could also be used as a park and ride facility as well. So some of the anxieties about getting on a public transportation that's full of strangers or whatever can be limited to a smaller group, and perhaps it's with familiar faces as well. So that may alleviate some of those anxieties and alleviate some of the carbon footprint for many cars driving up to the city center, that sort of thing. And then as we go into the transitional zone, Wellness suites, again, we see as essential. The introduction here of a VIP lounge, well, if you're flying clients in, or if you've got other employees that are coming in from a long way, there may be a nice amenity to have to be able to book a space, settle down, decompress, adjust yourself, get ready for your day. The business concierge has replaced those vending machines, those support spaces here. We see more of a concierge model being sort of the aspirational thing to do here, where you can get your whether it's IT support, whether it's office management support to help you book stuff, book meetings, whatever. But generally, personal service as well to help you perhaps book a meal out or manage different things would be a great thing to have here. We've introduced recomposure rooms. With the hybrid model and people potentially traveling a lot further, there may be marathon work sessions that are going to be occurring for multi-day periods, people from out of town. So the ability to refresh while you're in the middle of your day may be quite appealing to a lot of people. Or if people just want to change their clothes, take off their outside jacket and just refresh before they go into the office. It's like a mudroom. It could be a really important asset. And then those delivery lockers again. As we move into the convergence zone, what we're looking at here is team neighborhoods. Now, you've probably heard of neighborhood choice environments where we design by neighborhood. We make these neighborhoods human scale, so it's not vast expanses of desk and lots of people in an open space. We crunch it down, make it more intimate. You know, sizes can vary of that, but so people can get to know each other, whether it's by department, job function, or project at the time. Same principles apply with the flexibility in desk sharing and the team walls. What happens in the middle of this diagram here is something a little bit different. We're seeing virtual cafe models pop up. It's like a DoorDash for offices, exterior food services being brought in as well, people going out for lunch or bringing their own. But wouldn't it be nice if you had more of a membership lounge type convenience there, where you could actually choose from a variety of different work settings to meet and eat, or be alone and be catered for while you're doing that, and be as efficient as possible. And perhaps there are workrooms that you could book that are catered as well for those long marathon working sessions that you could perhaps work over lunch, do that sort of thing. And I'm not suggesting that's a healthy thing to do. You should also be mindful of your breaks. And then we do still see the need for in-person training. And so the facilities, the learning aspect of this environment is a very important one, and designing for that too. And then, of course, the focus pods. So now the ecosystem of spaces, as it relates to the advanced collaboration zone, we're seeing a massive increase in an improvement in technologies such as video conferencing, and we should design for every room to be able to accommodate video conferencing in the future because of the hybrid model, but also other technologies, augmented reality, holographic technologies. These are all technologies that are about to hit us in the market and get us thinking more three-dimensionally. So we'll have the ability to get around objects and look at those together, and that will really change the formats of the rooms as well. But thinking about increasing technology provision by ways of TVs and having the room more dynamic and edited is something you should absolutely be thinking about, and how to reconfigure that room so it all works. And then you've got other spaces like think tanks, innovation rooms, where you're on your feet, you're at a wall, you're sharing digital information, you're going away to a table to process that information. Basically like project rooms that you can book for a day. Show and tell spaces, design labs, and then specialist spaces like maker rooms, hacker rooms, podcast studios, that sort of thing. As flexible as possible. So that'll bring in your best practice modular design, and emphasis on best practice planning as well as acoustics, lighting, and all the other stuff that goes with building a successful environment that can support all those working behaviors. And then the outside again. We shouldn't just consider these as outside workplace, although that is an asset. It's an opportunity to grow without growth and improve the overall work experience during the day. But the play space is also important to do anything that's culturally important to an organization. Like it could be barbecue Thursdays, something like that, bocce, I don't know, ping pong, all those sorts of things that we've experienced in one project or another. But to enable people to be able to do all of that in the city is a really great thing.
So we know the office is not going away. This space has been specifically designed for your organization. This embodies your culture. This is where you come to socialize with your peers, to really be a part of this organization. This is where you have your access to leaders, to the C-suite. So you have those mentors that will influence your career. This is where the big tech is. This is where you get to have all the technology you need in one space to focus and do your job, whether that's teamwork or individual heads down. This, again, it's the Client Engagement Experience Center. It has a hospitality aspect to it. This is where you want to bring your clients. This is where innovation happens. It's co-creation of ideas. This is where teamwork can take place, and that everybody is in one space. We see this as being, more group focus and maybe less individual space. If there's some things you can do at home, does everybody need a desk? These will be questions that we have going forward. We also see, all the training like Daniel had mentioned in this location. Again, sorry.
I'm sorry, that was me.
No, that's okay. You're good. Again, some of the challenges are, not everybody is in the same location. So we have a dispersed model, and booking time together with people will become a little bit more difficult, whether it's room reservations or actually, booking a Teams meeting and it pops up on your screen so people who are at home or at the spoke can all join in one place. Again, the commute is going to be the biggest factor. Maybe it's, not every day, so it becomes a destination and you're excited to go to be able to work in the space. And again, for organizations, maybe it's a fiscal cost. The cost of real estate downtown is a lot more expensive than in rural areas. Maybe reducing that amount of square footage could be beneficial to a company. The space is designed specifically for that organization's culture. So when you go here, you're a part of something, and this is where you bring your clients and you get to experience that with them.
Thanks, Deanna. Hey, I'm going to accelerate a little bit because we're at time and there's some really interesting questions here. We just wanted to share with you what the advantages could be from both the business and the human advantages from people as well. So business advantages, it could see a cost improvement from the reduced city center footprint. We mentioned the spread of catchment for talent as well. The potential for more employees per square foot of real estate as well. If people are working at home, the desk sharing may come into play more than it has before. And as we all know, when we're doing our surveys, it's average of about 40% of those desks is ever occupied because people are in meetings or they're not there and that sort of thing. But more tailored real estate as well. Why is that advantage? Because productivity could increase from environmental stimulation, and when people have choice, they tend to be happier in most cases. Human advantages, greater work-life balance. We can be in more control of our destinies. Reduced transportation time, so we're not spending all those hours on the bus or on the train or in the car. Greater environmental variation, I just mentioned. The better quality connections and better quality of life. That all makes sense still. And now, I think last we counted, there's about 1,300-ish people on this call. There is a call to action here, and we wanted to reach out to you all. We've shared our ideas with you. They may be agreeable, they may be not, and you'll all have your own ideas. I think what we all should be doing now, and I don't want to dictate to you all, but it's just embracing the opportunity to really address this disruption and create spaces or a world that is better than it's been before. To keep the air quality great, to keep the daily experience great, to relieve these anxieties that people have, to leverage space more effectively, potentially reduce footprints and reduce carbon emissions as well. But if we just approach our future projects and our current projects with this mindfulness and just be more aware of some of the things we've discussed today, I think we can really make a change. So, Gail, Deanna, are we opening up to Q&A?
Yeah, we have some good questions coming in. I have 7 questions, so I can select from them. First one might be furniture related. How are you making the power mobile if furniture is mobile in the spoke?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. So from Steelcase perspective, there's 2 different ways we can do that. And one is It's a product called Thread. If you wanted to go on our website, just take a look at it. Imagine a long, thin pole with multiple outlets on it that has very flat wire that can go underneath carpet and be connected to various junction points. So that certainly is something that would help in areas indoor. We also have something that could work indoor and outdoor. We have a battery-powered mobile device. So, you know, in that case, imagine I've got a dark coffee mug here. Imagine something around that size, quite elegantly scaled, that actually can be powered. And then users can pick that up and carry that with them to wherever they need it to be.
Additionally to that, Gail, when I've been thinking about this, because it is always the anchor, right? Even though we've got battery power, we're all using laptops. There is a limit. I'm looking at lighter weight furniture. I'm trying to avoid panels if I can and move more to sort of, you know, they look like a store bench, but power spines that are lighter weight. And that if you think about the zone beneath that power that power spine, sorry, as being potentially 2 foot by whatever length it is, you know, if it's 2 desks, it's 12 feet. And if you use the cruciform format of desks or a 4-desk cluster, you can actually twist that 90 degrees, and you've got the opportunity to slide that along and potentially distance if there's anxiety about distancing, or compress, because we're going to be moving in and out of these situations in the future. So all of a sudden you've created 12 by 2 foot of movable space around the power core or something like that. Lighter weight components and kits of parts. And then
we have more questions coming. With the hub and spoke model, what are some tips and ways to avoid diluting the importance of the hub? If the spoke location increases inconvenience for some employees due to location, would the spoke be more of a drop-in or co-working space versus a team space?
That's a good question, isn't it? Gail, you want to take that one, or Deanna?
Yeah, I can start if you want. I think, you know, one thing you can do is, and probably will happen, is that the spokes will probably be for smaller teams, smaller meetings, and the hub would be for those moments where you have to bring larger groups or multiple teams together. And then I think also, you know, a lot of the points that Daniel walked through about some of those elements with a hub that make people want to be there because they can reconnect with a larger group of people. It may be that those hubs have more of the larger scale technologies that they would want to use. And, you know, it is a good question to think about how you balance that, so that you do have people choosing the spokes for all the right reasons, but then wanting to be in the hub for all of the right reasons that the company has relative to either the collaboration work or those moments where they need an organization to come together so that you can expand the group of people that you can interact with.
I think in every case, if I may jump on to you there, Gail, in a virtual sense, that is. But in every case, what we should be looking at is, I mentioned flexibility. I'm going to keep beating the drum on that one. But when we're designing, to design with in mind that the situations are going to continuously change, and we're going to have to keep surveying, seeing what the demand are and seeing what the supply is, thinking about exit strategies when we design, so we can crunch down, you know, maybe sublease, and then we're doing our clients a really good service. None of us really know what is about to hit us and how the models will change. So we have to absolutely, you know, when we're building a wall, assume that's going to be there for 6 months, and don't overdo it. Sounds terrible, does it, from a sustainability perspective? But I think you get the picture. Hey, Deanna, please read Tom Lorenzo's question. He always challenges me.
Yeah. All of your research and analysis of the last year, what most pleasantly surprised you? And in addition to the concern of present people, virtual people, what else has you a bit concerned about issues we might be facing in the near future?
What pleasantly surprised me the most was our ability to adapt and push through and get to where we have now. And in most people's cases, still be optimistic about the future. I think it showed me just how resilient, diverse, and flexible we all are. And that the spirit, particularly where I live now, and which is what I can relate to, but the spirit amongst the people has just been incredible.
If I could jump onto that one, Daniel, I also think something that Deanna said earlier, which is contrary to what everybody may have thought a year ago with all of the articles coming out everywhere about the end of anything that we call an office or the workplace. In fact, the very opposite has happened. And what's been such a pleasant surprise is to see how many organizations, senior leaders in organizations, are really being mindful now about the importance of the places where they bring their people together. So, whether it is a hub or a spoke, the fact that they're really thinking about what those things need to offer people, the fact that more of them are genuinely thinking through this idea of well-being and how can we design places that are not just containers where we put people who are working, but are actually places where they can thrive, thrive personally as well as on behalf of the organization. That has been a really pleasant surprise to see that what so many of us do, that it all really matters, and it will matter more in the future than it may even have in the past.
And to Tom's other point there, what concerns us more about the future, in addition to the hybrid working model and the have and have nots that might create. I had it in my head, now the question's disappeared.
I could re-ask that second part is, in addition to the concern of present people, virtual people, what else has you a bit concerned about issues we might be facing in the near future?
I can take that one for a moment, and then you could add on to it, Daniel. And this is something that we're actually hearing through our research from speaking with employees themselves, that while there's a lot of benefit for a lot of them with working from home, and there certainly are a lot of organizations where when they ask their people say, yeah, we would like the flexibility to work from home. At the same time, they're expressing a little bit of a concern that is probably something that HR organizations everywhere should be thinking about, is the out of sight, out of mind aspect. And we're starting to see some people say, well, yes, I really would like that flexibility or the ability to be from home, but I am a little worried that if I'm not seen, then I may, either my work may not be recognized or appreciated, or the one directly that we hear is, will I be bypassed for promotion if people never see me? And so I think that's where, some of those other questions about what do you do or how do you use the hub, that might be part of the reason why a hub does give people a place to be seen and be heard, even if they can't be there every day. I also think that's why the other thing that Danielle and Deanna talked about is how we create better experiences for remote participants. That becomes a really, really critical one as people maybe become a little bit nervous about not being physically seen every day.
There's one that was another question that was directed to me. Are any companies starting to feel responsible or that they should provide furniture for the home office, especially if they reduce the hub? That is a really good question.
May I jump in on that one too?
Yes, because you would probably have the most contacting Steelcase for furniture.
Yeah, no, but it is a question that we get asked a lot. A lot of organizations will ask us what they should be doing. And one of the things that we'll all need to pay more attention to is, as we have more people working from home, choosing to work from home, or organizations choosing for them to work from home versus having to do it because of the pandemic, we are going to have to think more about how you best equip those people at home. And certainly some of the OSHA standards are starting to suggest that the things that we all know to think about or worry about for the workplace, we may have to think about those for home. And it will be interesting for all of us to watch and see as perhaps expectations for a safe and healthy work environment start to rise, that organizations are going to have to think about how they manage that. And so that's, could be one of the complexities that results from this hybrid model. And I know we're certainly paying attention to what is happening in other parts of the world where they are looking at having to supply people working from home with certain aspects, what that may cost to do it. So that's something an organization is going to have to think about. And what the cost of not doing it may be is something that organizations are going to have to think about relative to health and safety.
It'd be interesting to see how many people complain about back problems after this year of not having good chairs, because I will tell you that was the biggest complaint. One really good. Oh, we have 1 minute left. Sorry, Daniel.
I'm sorry, Jill Hubbard just triggered my memory there. You have to forgive me. I'm getting old. Jill Hubbard says, in the hybrid environment with flexibility and choice, is it counterintuitive to have people say, I'll be there Monday, Wednesday, and you can be there Tuesday, Thursday? The thought I had when Tom asked his question was, and we've discussed this amongst ourselves, I can imagine most people want to go back Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to the office and have Monday, Friday at home. That could be devastating. Could be great, could be devastating. But just managing when people are coming in and coming out, if the idea is that we're creating opportunities for them to be together, get together, you know, it's not always going to be possible because you could have someone living on the other side of town and be in a different spoke office. But just the managing of getting teams together and where that people are located and all that sort of thing, I think it's going to be really, really tricky in the future. That's what worries me is when people are going in. You don't want ghost town on Monday and Friday, but how can you tell people what days to be in? It needs to be fluid as well, because people need to go in for a reason at times. Mm-hmm. So that's where I think technologies can help us, particularly apps and booking spaces and all that sort of thing. Have we got time for one more? We're at time, aren't we?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what are we allowed to do? Can we go over?
But Jennifer Womack, I'll get back to you personally on your question there.
You guys can do one more. Sure.
Okay, let's see.
Jennifer Womack, she asked, what are you thinking about the outdoor spaces in colder climates? There's a tricky one. Would outdoor igloo, shanties, etc., like restaurants are doing, be the solution or something else? I think it absolutely could be, Jennifer. People are outside. Why not? Either that or a thick woolly coat by the back door.
Heating lamps.
Thermal blankets.
Yeah.
I have one last question I really like. What would you say to leaders who strictly want all employees in the office every day? I think what we've learned is we need our life balance. We are all humans. It's difficult to commute every single day. We've learned that. I enjoy going into the office. I get more work done in the office, but going into an office every day becomes daunting versus wanting to go. So taking a poll amongst your entire staff, I think I would recommend that first to see what people are most comfortable with and what's beneficial to their life. We need our, 9 to 5 can be flexible.
I would just add to that, Deanna, that says I mean, there will be some organizations where some leaders will firmly believe they need their people to be together. Mm-hmm. And then I would say, tell them to make that the most compelling space they can. So people will choose to go in there and choose to work for that organization.
Good answer, Gail.
Okay.
Lisa's back. That means it's
I'm
game
back.
over.
Deanna, Daniel, and Gail, thank you so much. It was very insightful, and I enjoyed it very much, and I'm sure everybody else did on this call. Everyone, thank you for joining us. The session has been recorded, as we mentioned, and it will be available on our NeoCon website in the next couple of days. We have 2 more programs running in this March series. They are both tomorrow, so we hope that you might be able to join us tomorrow as well. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.